Welcome to Brick Wall Breakdowns, episode number 3. I'm Max Dean. You can find me on Twitter at @TheMaxDean, and I'm here with Kyron Samuels. He is our insider and offensive line expert here at Defiant Takes Football. You can find him at Kyron Samuels on Twitter, and he is a former offensive lineman, played Division I, Jacksonville State, played in the AFL, earned all AFL honors there, so he knows a thing or two about offensive line play. And in this series, that's exactly what we talk about. Episode 3 is going to be all about Orlando Brown Jr., the left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. For the time being, we're probably going to see some movement there, I do believe. So by the time you're watching this, he may already be with another team. Kyron, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good, man. Excited to get into this one. This is a interesting guy, pretty polarizing, and he's pretty accomplished. So for all the polarizing takes and everything about him, there's a reason he's going to get paid from somebody here pretty soon. So glad to get into it right now.
For sure. And we're going to see where he ends up, and I think fit is going to be a big deal for him. So we just have 5 plays to look over, and we're going to try and highlight some of the things that he's good at, some of the things that maybe that have caused him to be so polarizing. But he is a 6'8", 340-pound tackle who played right tackle for the Baltimore Ravens before coming over to the Chiefs in a trade, ended up being franchise tagged as their left tackle. And they weren't able to get a long-term deal done. So he is likely going to be on the open market. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Baltimore Ravens back in 2018, 83rd overall out of Oklahoma. Famously had one of the less impressive combines from an athletic testing perspective. I think he was slated to go higher in the draft, at least in media circles, until that combine occurred. And a lot of people pushed him down the board, as they say. So we're going to take a look at him in his playoff game against the Cincinnati Bengals this year. A couple of different clips here, and we're going to talk about what we see and what to expect from him. So first things first, let's fire up the tape and let's get it going. All right, so we're going to play through the first clip here. Kyron, you're going to kind of tell us what you see, and then we'll continue to break it down beyond that.
Cool, good deal. First thing, like you see off the bat, Max just highlighted his lack of athleticism, dating all the way back to his Oklahoma days in the combine. You're not going to get a guy that's very explosive out of his sets. You're not going to get a guy that is very spry and limber and jumping out there. But what you are getting is something that you cannot teach, you cannot develop. It's just a massive human being. He doesn't move very much at all on this play, but he's so big. Once he gets his hands on you, he's actually really good at shutting it down. I like to throw a comp out there. If you guys remember Bryant McKinney. Bryant McKinney was a guy that played a long time in the NFL, a pretty dang good player, never was quite elite all-pro level, but good player. Just got in the way. They remind me a lot of each other, especially with the way they pass block. We'll probably get a clip here in a second where he just runs a guy by. He's notorious for doing that because he doesn't have the athleticism to kick out there. And he doesn't have the strength and the power. I can't remember what his bench press reps were, but they were really, really low. He doesn't have the strength and the power to jump out there and quick set people and shock you in with his hands. He doesn't do that very often either. He's a guy that likes to run you by or get his hands on and just survive. And you know what? The crazy thing about this guy is that he's just good enough to where it works. So that's pretty much what you see here. He's just taking his steps, getting inside out, making sure the guy doesn't beat him across his face. It's just simple stuff here. But what he does is when he gets his hands on, you see the guy goes nowhere because you cannot teach this size.
Right. I mean, and it's with ease too. Like he gets his hands on the shoulder pads there, and he's not struggling. There's actually relatively little effort there because it's not necessary. If you get close enough to him where he can just grab you there, then it's essentially over. You just have to stand there. I mean, that's Trey Hendrickson. This is a good pass rusher, right? This is a good edge setter, and he's just there. He's just away from the play. Even if this running back were to bounce out of a tackle in some way, shape, or form, Hendrickson has no chance of impacting this play.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. That's one thing you'll get with him, man. Like I just said, once he gets his hands on, it's done. The problem is sometimes getting the hands on. But listen, he's proven time and time again that he's just good enough to be able to do it enough to where it's never been a major problem. So a lot of people have concerns about the guy. I'm not one of those people. I would say he's firmly a tier 2 tackle in this league. and there's a reason he's been to 4 Pro Bowls. Maybe one or two of them wasn't deserved fully, but he is a tier 2 tackle. He's a tier 2 tackle, and you could do a lot worse than this guy. So he's there for a reason.
All right. So next play we have here, I believe this is another pass rush rep,
Mhm.
but looks a little bit different.
Okay. Well, just you can tell a little bit here. See, this is the quintessential Orlando Brown Jr. rep here. Just look here. So he already like just coming out of his stance, right? He's already a little bit staggered. He's already pointing out a little bit, and that kind of plays to his strength a little bit. He just gets. I'm excited to see this back angle here one more time. You can just get it back a little bit. Trey Henderson is one of the premier pass rushers in the league. He's in a wide nine here. This is to me considered a wide nine. I mean, the ball's on the opposite hash. He's lined up on the other pro hash. So he's all the way over here. He's firmly outside the shoulder. This is like where you want to line up if you're Orlando Brown Jr. This is where you want to get lined up because this is what you do. You get out there, you set as well as you can, you get your hands on them, and then from here, you just ride them on out. This is what he does. And you can see, like, look at the guys in the middle. I mean, the middle of that pocket looks very good, right? So it can kind of look a little bit worse than it actually is when everybody else is on the line and his guy's the one running by and he's just squeaking about Mahomes. But he's proven over the course of his career he's effective at doing it. He gets just enough, and he gets just enough more times than not. So this is the quintessential Orlando Brown Jr. rep here. It's not conventional. You don't see a lot of guys do this because, first of all, a lot of guys aren't big enough to do this. They don't have the arm length. They don't have just enough strength and athleticism to get all the way out there. They're more getting hands-on type of guys and really timing their punch. This is what you get when you get Orlando Brown Jr.
Right. So I think for many other tackles who don't have a 6'8" frame and this crazy wingspan, you would be beat here because the end actually he does have a step on him, right? Like you said, getting out of his set, it's not that explosive, not that quick. So he is beat in that way. But because he's so long and gets hands on him, he can kind of dictate how quickly he actually gets to the quarterback, and he can drive him slightly outside the arc, right? So he's not actually impacting the pocket. And Patrick Mahomes is able to make a beautiful throw down the field here too. So it doesn't ultimately impact the play. And from a pass protection standpoint, that's really all you can ask for. So again, like you said, unconventional, but he knows how to use what he does have in his toolbox. Now, this is, I
Right.
think, another similar one, but
Yeah, right. One more thing before we move on here. That's Trey Henderson too. Like I know a lot of people get enamored with that and talk about all the things, how unconventional it is. It doesn't look pretty. It isn't all that. That's against a perennial Pro Bowler in the AFC Championship game. It doesn't. The stakes don't get pretty much bigger than this. That's the type of reps you're going to get, man. If he's good enough to do it in this situation, in this setting, against that caliber of player, you have to live with it. So a lot of the concerns, people should just relax them a little bit and just understand what you're getting. And if you have realistic expectations, you won't come away disappointed with this player.
right. All right. So next up, the rep is going to look a little bit similar, but also, I believe, if I did put this in the correct order, that it is still going to highlight some of the lack of explosion out of his stance here. So let's take a look.
Right again, I'm more of a tight copy guy, end zone copy guy, so I'll save my commentary for them. But you'll see here, you get little bit of a different look. You got two guys in the C gaps here, so we might expect a little funky game, but we don't. We actually get a screen here. But this is what you see from Orlando Brown Jr. Like you said, the lack of athleticism. This is what you will get on a normal rep for him. It looks the same, which is pretty funny. But one thing that you can give him, he plays with effort. He does have that frame, and I think a thing that he could benefit from is maybe widening his base out a little bit. Depending on where he goes, he could go to a different team. He can come back here. But maybe if he widens his base out a little bit, it can help him become a little more stout and help him get a little bit more depth in these situations where he's not always, having to fight so hard to get there. Get a little bit wider in your stance, maybe widen out a little bit. I mean, these are things that you have to, check with officials and working over time. But I think there's little things like that he can do to kind of reduce some of the surface area and some of the space so where he's not always in recovery mode or survival mode.
Mm-hmm. So again, that was a screen. So in terms of affecting the play, it didn't necessarily. But at the same time, this still does highlight how an explosive rusher can get around him because it's not that far off of being a quarterback hit even off of the screen, which is it's a fine line you walk, but you want to make
Right.
sure that never happens.
And this is pretty much like a bear type look. You got a zero shade. You got two guys playing on outside shoulders. They're in a bear front here. So you see the guy lined up a little bit. I like to see the end zone copy here. You get it again, and then you see him popping into the screen late. Trey Henderson there. He's a stand up guy. Just this is a tough matchup for anybody here. I just wanted people to keep that in mind when you're watching this. It doesn't look very pretty most of the time, but just keep in mind who it is, the situation, and the alignment. This is a very difficult block for any tackle, let alone against a guy who doesn't have premier athleticism or strength in some kind of way. He finds a way to get the job done. So just keep that in mind when you're watching these. He actually takes a very, very good set here. His hands are a little bit too low, but uh, that's another thing I've noticed with him. His hands are a little bit low. I think it kind of hinders him a little bit from maybe delivering more of a blow, but that also kind of plays into what he's used to doing is just getting hands on or running a guy by, not necessarily striking and impacting him with the blow he gets his hands on. So little things that he could probably tweak and get better, but we'll only see from here.
All right. Next up, let's take a look.
Same look, but it looks like they already had this, predetermined from an offensive line standpoint that he was taking this guy because he doesn't make any qualms about it. He knows exactly where he's going. He gets hands on immediately. Boom, he comes right down. And this may be something that he recognized on film, just a recognition play. Could be the call, but he immediately knows who his guy is, and then they send the guy to replace where the 96 came from. So whether or not it was a call that they made at the line or film study, that's a situation where you see some of his wit, some of his savvy. He was smart. He ID'd the blitz. He knew what was coming, and he eliminated it. He just got hands on. And those are things that you can take away as pluses because not everybody is as savvy. Not everybody is as good communicating or receiving the calls. There's a lot of miscommunication at times. So we talked a little bit about it as negatives, but those are some of the pluses right there. Just his acumen, his IQ as a football player.
Right. I mean, so the defense is clearly intending to try and lure him to block a player that's not coming off of the edge here, freeing up space for either 55 to come down through the A gap or 96 to slide through the B gap there. And he just picks up 96, no problem, blocks up his man. And also, not only does he pick him up, he's not going anywhere once he gets his hands on him. And you see that again, similar to the first play.
Absolutely.
This was so fun. Also, getting sidetracked by the beautiful throws that Mahomes make and all the nonsensical plays that the Chiefs are running. It's hard to keep focused sometimes when you're watching the Chiefs offense. I'm not going to lie.
Got a
All
little
right.
bit more of a traditional four-man front here. So maybe you won't expect anything as funky as you have been, but they're running the ball here, so we can talk a little bit about his run game ability because it's not that bad. Yeah, you just got traditional four-man front here. He goes just zone. He gets his hand inside out. I mean, you can't ask for much more, especially in the red area. You're not necessarily trying to get a ton of movement here. This is more about positioning it and opening up those little holes for people to get through in the red zone. When you go zone, that is. In power, you're going to move in the down blocks and the double teams and stuff like that. But he does a really good job here of taking what he gets him. He could have tried to hook it and reach it, and then he probably gets beat across his face, and that's a no gain. He takes what Hendrickson gives him, keeps his inside arm strong. He has very good foot drive here. He does a lot better in the run game going downhill than he does going back. I mean, obviously, that's the case for most people probably, but it is very apparent with a guy like him. So taking what he gives him, not doing anything crazy, and getting his big body in front of the other big body. And he does it very well here.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, if you are going to sign Orlando Brown, you're probably better off. Pull us back up here. But I think ultimately you are better off if you are a run heavy offense, especially if you run a lot of power, which I think, is why the Ravens originally drafted him. And he was a really good fit there. He wanted the opportunity to play left tackle, which he got, and he proved that he can do it. But I think even so, he would still benefit from being with a team where that is their identity, even asking that from their left tackle. And I understand why the Kansas City Chiefs ended up moving in a slightly different direction because the pure number of times that they want to drop back and pass, even if it is quick, it's probably better suited to a player like Jawan Taylor, who we did as our very first offensive line breakdown. And, it was clear that that was his strength, right? So
Right.
it's not just about how good a player is with a singular grade, as a lot of people would have you think. It is really about what specific things does he do best, and how can we put him in a situation where that is what is accentuated. So a team that does ask him to run power, run game plays a higher percentage of the time than probably the average in the league, or at the very least isn't asking him to drop back a lot, and also isn't asking him to run stretch on zone a ton either, right? Like run and get out into space, because he's got the length that he can get hands on you, so he can be effective in it. But if you really want to get the best out of him, asking him to do it over and over again is probably not what you're looking for. So, if you could just lay something out here in terms of who you think would be the ideal situation for him, who do you think that might be?
I mean, the two teams that come to mind instantly is the Las Vegas Raiders, who need tackle help pretty badly. And it's kind of like the Patriot way. I mean, McDaniels comes from the Patriot tree, and they're going to do a lot of running. I mean, Josh Jacobs had the second most attempts in the National Football League last year rushing the football, and they need a guy who's better in the pass protection game. I think he would be a good fit there. I think they have the money. I'm not sure. I'm not a capologist type guy, so I don't know how they will work it out. But I don't think that he's going to command too much money on this market. I think he may be a 1-year deal type of guy where you can get him for a 1-year deal and see what he has, and then you maybe have to re-up from there. But I think he would be a good fit there, and I think he'd also be good in the West Coast system like Miami, maybe bumping him back over to a right tackle. I know he wants to play left tackle, get paid left tackle money, but for a team that has a right tackle need such as Miami, pairing him opposite Teron Armstead, it could be a very, very good fit for a team like that, and also help them in the run game, because you get bookends like that with Teron Armstead and Orlando Brown Jr. Blocking for you. It helps the run game, especially with the amount of zone that they like to run, the amount of quick hitting stuff that they like to run. The ball gets out fast in Miami as well, so he wouldn't be dropping back and 5-step nearly as much as he had to do with Patrick Mahomes. So I think those two teams are probably the biggest fits that I would see. And you can never count out a team like the Los Angeles Rams as well. The Rams need offensive line help bad. I'm not sure about their money situation either, but it would make sense in McVay's offense. A lot of quick hitting stuff, a lot of getting the ball out quick, where he wouldn't have to be in traditional 5-step as much. So I think those three teams will be the best fits for him, and hopefully there's a money situation where he can get paid and he can go to a team like that that does fit his skill set. So I'm really looking forward to see what happens here. Good luck to him, because I think he's an underrated player. I think he's become underrated with the discourse and how people talk about him. And he's a 4-time Pro Bowler for a reason, man. Like, some of the alternate stuff, whatever, what have you. But on the record, he's 4-time Pro Bowler. He started in the Super Bowl game. He's played very well, didn't give up a sack in those playoffs. So he's proven that at his peak, he is a Pro Bowl caliber player. And I think that's what you're going to get from him more times than not.
So you say the Raiders. I like him in New England. I think the Patriots are a really good fit for him. I think he could go there and play left tackle. And Isaiah Wynn's had a lot of injury issues, so I think they're looking for a different player at that position. I think this is a guy that they could go after and would be a great fit. And then the AFC East teams would have to deal with him for a long time. So we'll see where he ends up. Again, by the time we have this live, we may already be getting breaking news on that. But Kyron, I appreciate you joining me today, talking about another offensive lineman. We will be back very soon with one more, and then another after that. So again, find me at DMaxDean. Find Kyron at Kyron Samuels. You can find Defiant Takes Football at Defiant Takes on all social media outlets. Check out the rest of the YouTube channel for prospect breakdowns, and we go live every single Monday, Thursday. Also released on podcast feed, and of course, DefiantTakesFootball.com for all of our published written content. All right. We'll see you all very soon.